I did it. So, I have just finished The Passengers by John Marrs, and I have some thoughts, and I want to talk about them, and I want to stream of consciousness chaos my way through a video, because why not? The first thing I want to say is this tagline here. Find it. There you go. Who lives, who dies, you decide. I'm never going to remember that. It's always who lives, who dies, who tells your story. Every time I look at it, I think it says that, and it doesn't. I think The Passengers was really, really strong until like this point. It's separated into 4 parts. Yeah, see those gray lines? Those indicate the parts. So part 1 is tiny, part 2 is huge, and then 3 and 4 are tiny again. Parts 1 and 2, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, all the things. It was so smart, and does the I keep saying the John Marrs thing. I've only read this and the one, but multiple perspectives, and you just kind of cycle through everybody. This story does have a main character who is outside of The Passengers. The one felt more like 5 short stories that all got schmucked together. This is not that. This is one cohesive narrative with multiple POVs. I also did this one simultaneously, physically and audioly. That is the way that I would recommend to do this, because the narrators do really add something, but it's too confusing to do just audio. There's too many narrators and they sound too similar to me. That might just be me being non-British. All the British people sound the same. Maybe British people have the same thing with American accents. What do I know? But I found that I couldn't do it. And especially with the ever-changing POVs, I think doing both was a really good experience for me. And I really enjoyed the passenger characters. I want to say even more so than the ones. I think the one had some bum characters. There were some losers. Like the Australian girl. No one really cares about her. It was mildly interesting, but like, eh. These ones are all interesting, which is great. And it's so good for the beginning, and then the very end, there are some more reveals right there at the end, but they're not good enough to justify having a whole separate section for them. Like it's a how long is this section? It's like a 70-page epilogue, which is not fun. An epilogue is definitely warranted here. We definitely needed an epilogue, but we didn't need this. Let me see what else I want to say in my notes before I get into spoilers, because I took notes and am dropping things. My first point is an excellent point. John Marrs hates kids. A lot of bad things happen to kids in this book, so if you are sensitive to that, maybe avoid it. Most of them are sort of only mentioned, like it's a toss away line here or there, but they're pretty dark and pretty upsetting, and I wasn't a fan, and I feel like he did some of that in the one too. I think he just hates children. The formulaic nature of the book really worked for it. So there's the set of POVs, and so you know what's going to happen. It doesn't cycle quite the same way as the one does. The one is like 5 POVs and it goes 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. This does like 1, and then Libby, the main character, for a while, and then 2, and then a little more Libby, and it's spliced up a bit more differently. But it means that when there's a reveal on character 1, you know you're gonna then get it on 2 and 3 and so on. And then when another thing happens, you know you're gonna get it from everyone again. It sounds formulaic, but it actually really helps with the pacing and with your excitement. I guess that's it. Like, you really want to keep reading to find out what happens, because you know you're gonna get a really good payoff. Maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe other people don't like how formulaic it is, because in the one it did bother me because the most interesting perspective was followed by the least interesting perspective. This definitely didn't suffer from that problem, while still giving all of the characters, giving them enough screen time, basically. I also really appreciated the sort of social commentary in it. It's twofold. I both hated it and I really liked it. because this book is about automated driving cars, and it was very like, AI isn't a human and they can't make the decisions that we make, and how can you trust anything, which like isn't how technology works for the most part. You know what an AI does, and you can make it do a thing, and it's not gonna become a sentient robot. Yeah, there are still a lot of things that self-driving cars can do, and it's concerning, but it's not gonna get to that level. It's just not. They also spend a good portion of time talking about immigrants in a very unfiltered way, in a way that I think is very relevant. Like, they reference Brexit a bunch of times and talk about the way that immigrants are viewed, and there are some really negative opinions that main characters speak, and it's upsetting but also realistic, and I appreciated that he didn't shy away from it. It was very interesting. I don't know how to explain it. Just read it and then maybe you'll understand. What do I know? Read books, don't watch YouTube. The other thing about this book is it's constantly referencing The One. Literally constantly. They are talking about people, main characters get tested for the Match Your DNA thing. It does sort of spoil The One, only in name. I think if you knew what it said in The Passengers and then went back to read The One, you would still have a good time reading it, because The One is much more of a character exploration. Much in the way that Passengers is. It's really about, I guess, about like how human instincts are bad, so maybe we should just trust the driverless cars. That was what I took away from it. It was a real character study of complicated people, and I really enjoyed that. I think he does that really well, and then the fact that it happens to be within a thriller is just a bonus. Originally I was gonna title this something like, is The Passengers better than The One? I still might for the clickbaits, but I would say if you like one, you will like the other. If you want more thrillery, go with this one. If you want darker, go with this one. But if you want more personal, this one feels more existential and the other one feels more personal. But this one also feels personal. This one is better for this much of it, and then for this much of it, it's worse, and like a lot worse, but I would still recommend both. Okay, I think I'm gonna get into spoilers now, and the first spoiler I want to talk about is how it's revealed that the cars are murdering people based on whether they have a higher social standing or not, which doesn't make any sense, because earlier on Libby specifically calls out, did the AI consider crashing into a parked car instead? And that never gets talked about again, because that makes the most sense. Are we also considering destruction of private property in that calculation? I thought that was silly. I know that's like a super big reveal part of it, but that didn't feel relevant. But the whole inquiry, what do they call them? The inquests that they do into the cars, you know what I'm talking about. That whole thing felt really unnecessary, and like Libby walks in and knows it's a scam from the beginning, but the rest of the people don't seem to know that it's a scam. They really think that they're doing something good, and they're clearly not. They're clearly being manipulated into picking a car every time, and I don't get how that isn't super clear to everyone. And like, the car has safety features, so if you swerve, then the person inside the car is still probably gonna be fine. It felt glaring to me. It bothered me. The next one is, I was trying to figure out who the hacker was, and like throughout the whole thing, because I figured the hacker had to be either someone we already knew from the narrative or associated with someone from the narrative. And I feel kind of dumb for not figuring it out, because there's a part where Jude talks about how he worked for a car manufacturing company, or like his dad owned it or something. And it's super obvious. Hey, that guy? That's probably the guy associated with the hackers. And maybe that's a testament to John Mars, that like I caught it, I thought about it, and then it went away. It just exited my brain. Maybe that's a point for him, but it more just feels like a negative point for me. And I thought that the reveals on him were excessive. I appreciated them, but they also came so rapid fire, and like, you obviously didn't trust him, because he has the reveal that he's not really Jude, his name is Noah, and blah blah blah. And then the second reveal, no, my name's not actually Noah, it's actually Alex, and I'm Noah's brother. And it's like, I don't care. And oh, and I was sleeping with my brother's wife. Okay, what does that have to do with you hacking? You can just be a monster. That's fine. You don't need to have a personal vendetta. You can just hate driverless cars because they seem dumb, or they destroyed your business and your family's reputation. Like, those are still valid. You don't have to have a dead bastard child. I just thought it was silly, and I don't know why. I feel like Jude wasn't fleshed out, which again should have been obvious that he was someone associated with the hackers, but it made him feel hollow with the reveals, because I already didn't know him, and so anything that he said, I was like, okay, but are you though? The first time I'm getting to know you, I already know you're a liar, so I don't trust anything that you're saying. So the problem I'm having right now is that the ending of this was bad. I did not like it. I thought it was a waste to have the pacing just fly right out the window. Part 3 is 6 months later, and then part 4 is 2 years later. You've taken all of the momentum out of that, because the first 2 parts happen within 2.5 hours, and you barely follow up with any of the main passengers. It all goes to Libby's perspective, who I don't really care about. Oh, also Libby marries Matthew, which was super weird. I did notice that they were making him really sympathetic in the inquest, and I thought that's weird because Libby's set up to be with Jude. Like, that's her whole plot line, but we're also sort of setting up Matthew as a sub love interest, which sure, why not? But also, did we need that? Did Libby need to get married and be pregnant? Because he has a thing about pregnant ladies. There's 2-3 pregnancies mentioned in this book. That doesn't feel like enough. I think there are more pregnant. Oh yeah, because there's all of Heidi and Sam's kids, and Shabana has her own kids, and they talk about how she had to walk home from the hospital. There's a ton of pregnancy and kid stuff mentioned. John Mars has a thing. I don't know what it is. And in the one, the pregnant lady being pregnant was her whole storyline. So where was I going with this? Oh, it was unnecessary for Libby to be pregnant, because we already had everyone being pregnant and everyone's relationships crumbling around them. And did we really care about Matthew? That felt dumb. Maybe that was an editor thing. They were like, we just need a love story, because why not? I didn't like that. So yeah, I'm struggling because the ending was bad, but the beginning, I was like, this is better than the one. And I don't know if it is anymore. I think the beginning is better than the one because it's more thrilling. Because the one wasn't really thrilling other than the one plot line. And then they tried to do it with the second plot line. But like, it's a mild thriller. This is a proper thriller with really good character examination and a crap ending, and I'm so sad about it. Because now what do I do? Do I give it 5 stars and be like, but just stop after part 2? Maybe. That's honestly, that's what I think you should do. If you want to read this book and then just sort of stop, then it's fine. Because even the reveals that you end up getting aren't that interesting or are sort of obvious. Like, Jude is associated with the hackers and really isn't really who he says he is. Yeah, I knew that. Jack Larson pays off a bunch of people could have figured out that the dirty politician would continue being a dirty politician. Other people reconcile, or Claire had her baby and they're fine. Like, these are all obvious things. And I didn't care about Libby. I cared about Libby a lot more in parts 1 and 2, but once it was just her, I didn't care. She didn't feel like she had a personality. She felt like she was a plot device. And she just sort of had to be the everyman, but boring. I read the one about 6 months ago, so I remember it still fairly well, but I do wonder if in 6 months' time, what will I remember about this book? Will it be the bad ending, or will it be the awesome car stuff? That's the thing about this, is the reveals were all really good, but expected. Like, you knew a reveal was gonna happen, but the fact that it still paid off is the sign of a really good thriller. You could reread this easily and still get enough out of it that it would be really worthwhile. We should talk about the passengers though, as individuals. So Claire's bit, amazing, shocking, spectacular. And knowing she has a body in the trunk and then it not being murder and making me believe that is a very good John Mars, very good on you. Sophia's whole thing was extremely upsetting, and he does such a good job of, like, you see where she's coming from. You still don't agree with her, but you are more on board with her reveal, which I thought was really well done, because Claire's was just like, you're totally on her side. She was an idiot for doing it. It was obviously a bad call to commit insurance fraud, but you know that she's not a bad person. Sophia still feels like a bad person who did some really messed up things. And I think that was a great contrast to Claire. And then you get into Sam, who I really want to talk about, because Sam has 2 families. Sister wives who don't know about each other. Great. Don't care. The thing that bothered me so much was that he named his kids the same. So there's 2 Jameses and 2 Beckys. And for whatever reason, that is the line I draw. Having identical houses with identical furniture, all positioned the same way, lying to your 2 wives, I don't know. Those all just seem like, if you're gonna do it right. But for some reason, it feels like taking identity away from these kids. John Mars hates kids. It feels like Sam doesn't value his kids as individuals, and they're like props in his weird psycho game. Oh, that bothered me so much. That bothered me so much more than he has 2 families. If he'd named the kids something else, Sam's off the hook for me. He's fine, because he found the lady through the one, because we can't stop talking about the one, because I guess that's the only thing John Mars cares about. But yeah, I could not get over kids being named the same thing. And then at the end, they like live together with their half siblings who all have the exact same names. And then Heidi's was great, because Heidi's was still bad but understandable. It was something that like started as a joke, because she started off by signing him up for hookup websites, and he would get dick pics all the time and stuff, and like, that's just good. We've all thought about doing that to an ex. And then it just sort of escalated from there, so then you were like more on their side, as much as you can be in the scenarios that are presented. And then Jude was just kind of there. This whole bit is he's suicidal and he was planning on killing himself today, which also is mentioned on the back, that one of the passengers is a suicidal man, which is a huge reveal that doesn't happen until over halfway through this book, and I'm very disappointed in it, but I guess it's a lie, so who cares. And I think there was some really interesting discussion to be had there around more mental health stuff, and they did try, because Libby's a mental health nurse, but I feel like it could have gone more. That was something I was really interested in that it didn't really delve into. I feel like when I think about this, I'm going to think about those 4 main pastors. Oh, and then Shabana, who was great, but she dies so quickly, which is really interesting, and I appreciated the way that the narrative handled that, but I do wish we could have had a POC character as a person and not as an example The ending was so bad, but the beginning was so good. In conclusion, The Passengers was good. The One was also good. Read books. Like things. I like both of these things. This is one of those books where, like, right after I finish this, I'm gonna go dive into all of the Goodreads reviews, and I'm very excited about that. Anyway, I guess that's it. Was this video anything? You decide. That's what it says on the cover, and not who tells your story, but also who tells your story. I need to go. I need to eat something or have a nap, or I don't know. My brain don't work anymore. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Oh,